2:17 a.m. The timestamp appears quietly in recovered phone data, long after hope of rescue had faded. It does not correspond to a completed call or sent message. Instead, it marks deliberate activity from a device belonging to a missing hiker deep in the Panamanian rainforest. Investigators would later confirm that this moment occurred more than a week after the hikers were last seen. The hour alone was disturbing. What it implied about survival and decision-making made it far more so. The case centers on Chris Kremers and Liz en Fruin, two Dutch women in their early 20s who vanished near Boquete, Panama, in April 2014. They were college-educated, careful planners, and traveling as part of a structured gap year program involving volunteer work and language study. Nothing in their background suggested recklessness or desire for dangerous adventure. On April 1st, 2014, they left their accommodation to hike the Pianista Trail, a popular route leading to a scenic overlook known as the Mirador. The hike was considered manageable for tourists. Weather conditions were normal. They carried a small backpack containing water, personal items, a digital camera, and 2 mobile phones. There was no camping or survival equipment, indicating the hike was intended to be brief. Photographs later recovered from the camera confirmed they reached the Mirador early that afternoon. The images showed calm expressions and clear conditions. After that point, the trail descends into dense rainforest on the far side of the Continental Divide, an area far less traveled and more dangerous. Why the women continued beyond the Mirador has never been definitively explained. At 4:39 p.m., shortly after the last confirmed daytime photograph, weather phones attempted to dial the local emergency number. The call failed due to lack of signal. Over the following days, multiple emergency call attempts were made from both phones. None connected. The devices were powered on and off intermittently, a pattern consistent with efforts to conserve battery life. When the women failed to return, search and rescue operations began. Authorities, volunteers, and specialized teams searched the trails and surrounding terrain. Helicopters scanned from above, and search dogs were deployed. Despite extensive efforts, no trace of the hikers was found in the initial weeks. Nearly 10 weeks later, a backpack was discovered along a riverbank miles from the Pianista Trail. It was dry and intact. Inside were the women's phones, their camera, cash, and other personal belongings. Investigators later stated that the condition and placement of the backpack suggested it had not simply been carried downstream by the river. Analysis of phones revealed a detailed digital timeline. For several days after April 1st, the devices were used intermittently. Battery levels were checked. Networks were searched. PIN codes were entered, sometimes incorrectly. At certain points, a phone was powered on without any attempt to unlock it. These details indicated that at least one of the women remained alive and conscious for an extended period. The most unsettling discovery came from the camera. On the night of April 8th, between roughly 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., more than 90 photographs were taken in total darkness. The images did not show faces, injuries, or clear landmarks. Many were nearly black, illuminated only by the camera flash reflecting off vegetation, rocks, and uneven ground. Metadata confirmed the timing of these images. Among them was activity recorded at approximately 2:17 a.m. The photographs were taken at irregular intervals, suggesting intentional use rather than accidental activation. Investigators noted that the pattern did not resemble casual photography. It appeared purposeful. Experts examining the images observed that some were aimed upward toward the canopy, while others pointed at the ground or into dense foliage. One image appeared to show pieces of paper arranged on a rock. Another may have captured the back of a person's head, though this has never been conclusively identified. Crucially, none of the images clearly documented an accident site or explained the women's condition. The official conclusion was that the hikers became lost, encountered difficulties in terrain, and eventually died due to exposure or injury. This explanation accounted for the initial emergency calls and lack of preparation. However, the nighttime camera activity, particularly the sustained use during the early morning hours, raised unresolved questions. Why use a camera flash repeatedly instead of a phone's flashlight? Why take dozens of photographs rather than conserve power? Why did this activity occur days after the disappearance rather than earlier, when search efforts were most active. Investigators considered possibilities, such as signaling for help, illuminating surroundings, or responding to environmental threats, but none could be confirmed. Eventually, partial human remains were recovered downstream, and forensic analysis supported conclusion of accidental death. No evidence of third-party involvement was found, and the case was officially closed. For the families, the recovered phone data extended a period of uncertainty and grief. For investigators, it underscored the limits of technology. Devices can record actions, but not intentions. They preserve timestamps, not context. At 2:17 a.m. in total darkness, someone activated a device for a reason that remains unknown. That moment confirmed survival longer than expected, but it did not reveal the truth. And years later, the question still lingers. If someone was still thinking clearly enough to act, why has that moment never led to an answer?